So let's look at some Latin root words and see if we can figure out what English words may be derived from these roots. We'll go on to play a little bit of a game where I'll give you a root word and let's see if we can come up with what words in English may come from that root word. Okay, so let's get started. Our first example is magn, M-A-G-N, which means great. So what words could possibly come from this root? So I guess the easiest one to begin with is, what do we call something in terms of size? That would be its magnitude. How big, how great, or how small something is. And after that, what do we call it when we make something greater in size? That's right, we magnify it. Now, what do we call something that is great in a qualitative sense? We call it magnificent. Nice. So one more I can think of off the top of my head is probably not such a common word, but there is a word that is derived from magn, which actually means benevolent or great in spirit. This word is magnanimous. Nice. Okay, next example. We're going to OCU, which means I, E-Y-E-I. You've probably already seen a lot of words that could come from this root. So our first example is somebody who is responsible for your eye's health. That would be an oculist. And something that relates to the eye is called ocular. Okay, now let's try a little bit of a game. If I tell you that the Latin word for one is mono, what do we call a device that fits on one of your eyes? That comes from this word mono and the word for eye. The word is monocle. So that would be M-O-C-L-E, monocle. Okay, now maybe a more common word is what you call a device that is used by both of your eyes at the same time. And here's a hint, the word for two is bi. And yes, the word is binoculars. Great. So let's try to run through one more example. Our third example is the root word D-I-C-T, dict, which means to say or to tell. This probably looks very familiar to a lot of you. So what do we call it when someone says something out loud? That would be to dictate. And what do we call somebody who insists on everyone listening to what they tell them? That would be a dictator. And this is interesting. What do you call it when someone tells you something ahead of the time it happens? And here's a hint. The root for before would be pre, and the word is predict. Our final example is a book of all the things you could tell somebody or say to somebody, and that would be a dictionary. Let's try a couple of examples together now, shall we? So let me give you the root word P-E-D, ped, which means foot. Come up with some words that you think could come from the root word ped. For those of you who are having a little bit of trouble with this one, let's think of an example together. What do you call something that has 100 feet? That would be a centipede. And what do you call something that counts the number of footsteps you take? repeatometer. Interestingly, if you remember from the section we did about Greek roots, you would recall that this word meter is actually derived from the Greek word metron. Our last example is going to be just one big word that we'll get together. Okay, so let's say you know that the word for both is ambi, and the word for right hand in Latin is dexter. What do we call it when somebody can use both hands as if they are both their right hands? So, for a bit of context, in Roman times, the right hand was considered the auspicious hand, as most people wrote with their right hand. But today we have a word that means somebody who's capable of writing with both their hands. And this word, if you haven't guessed yet, is ambidextrous.